All right, so let's talk about the brand story next. So in order to have a good brand, you need more than a good in-person experience, right? Like that restaurant that we talked about earlier. They might have amazing food, but you wouldn't know it, right? From their website or their Facebook stuff. So a brand story is where you start. You start building up that good brand. Beyond creating that first impression, it's really a brand story is going to help you present a compelling story and vision of you and your business. And I think the most important part is how you're helping to improve the lives of your customers. So you might be doing that through making them happier, through relaxation, through health, like you could be a health food store, through convenience, knowledge, expertise, something else. But we use brand stories because people, like, if just pause for a second and think about what how you connect to businesses or products or things that you like. You might really love a product, but if you're a small business and you like to go to a particular restaurant, or you decide to go somewhere because you read about them online, not all the time, but a lot of the time, you relate better to the person behind that business or the people that are working in that business as much as to, like, what that business sells. And so this is not like a secret. If you look at what like really well-known companies do, they always start with a brand story. And the reason is because it just basically, people connect to people, not businesses. And when you make a really good connection, it helps customers remember you in a positive way. So again, the digital ecosystem right now is super, super crowded. And a lot of this is about how can you break free from what you were doing before? How can you breathe some life into what you're doing now? How can you make it more interesting and less onerous for you so it doesn't feel like a chore? Oh, I've got to put stuff on Facebook twice a day, right? And how do you make it more meaningful and authentic? Doing all those things will help customers remember you in a more positive way. Okay, so next slide, please. This is not English class. This is not high school English class, but a lot of people have a really hard time telling their story, and a lot of businesses have a really hard time telling their story. I know because I work with businesses, and I'll say, tell me your brand story, and I'll give kind of like an abbreviated version of this training to them or a workshop, whatever. And usually what I get back is like, if I don't go into it in detail, I get back like what I do. Like I sell, I offer, my products are, and I'm like, why did you do this? Why did you start your business? And a lot of people really struggle with that. We're going to look at examples of well-known companies that are doing this really, really well. And you're going to see this exact formula kind of in how they apply it. But let me just walk you through it really quickly. So it's called a story arc, but you can call it something else. Think of your brand story as, like, I don't know, it could be a fairy tale, it could be a comic book or a novel, whatever it is, but it's got a bunch of different components to it. And it starts with, every story generally needs a hero, right? A protagonist. It needs some tension or some conflict or some challenge. That's what sustains your interest, right? How did you do that? Now what happened, right? And then it needs some kind of a good ending. Sometimes there's a moral. And brand stories, believe it or not, they follow that formula. So at the very beginning, there's a protagonist, that's you're the hero. Then there's the quest, which is whatever problem or challenge needs to be solved. And then there's the journey that you take to overcome that challenge or that adversity and achieve your goal. And the goal, is in this instance, how you started your business. Next slide, please. Okay, there we go. Cool. So again, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's not the what, it's the why. So almost every business starts with a what. This is what I do. But remember, the whole point of a brand story and the whole point of your brand and the whole point of the posts and the things that you put on your website, as you're agonizing, do I start a blog? Do I not start a blog? What do I write on my blog? Your North Star should be the why. How do I get people to connect to me, trust me, believe in me, and then become evangelists for me, right? Tell people how amazing my business is and my employees and what I do, and then share online. So to do that, you have to start with why you do what you do. right, in your brand story? What problem, what change did you see in people's lives, or what was out there that you felt you needed to solve through your business? Like only you could do it in this way. And then what was your own personal motivation to doing that? You had to have done it for some reason. I'll share the Factor 3 brand story so you can learn a little bit about me and some other folks too. But this is where you establish that first connection with your customer. It's where you draw them into your story and you get them to see you as a person. We're not talking about paragraphs and paragraphs. This is not an essay, but it's where you start that initial connection. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. So we talk a little bit about who you are and sort of that challenge, right? I see this problem in the world. I'm going to start a company to do something about that, right? And again, later we'll talk about some actual companies. Okay, but then there's your path, right? Like the journey that you're going to take to starting your business or solving that problem. The products you're going to think about, or the services, or why you do things the way you do. It's all because you're taking this journey to that end, right? And it's not easy. It's hard to start a business. It's hard to maintain it. It's hard to recruit people. It's hard to engage with people. There's so many things that are difficult, but it's hard just to get started. And I think everybody has some kind of a challenge or an obstacle, or a lot of wrong turns maybe, or a lot of decisions to make. But I think talking about the challenges that you face in starting the business, like if I'm from Bolivia, but like you're an immigrant and maybe you had a hard time, getting credit, or you had a hard time, learning the language, whatever it is, those challenges show who you are. And I do think that they're important to put in the story if you have them, because it just makes people trust you. It makes you maybe a little bit more vulnerable, but it also talks a little bit about your work ethic and your character and your creativity, because you are bringing those things to bear on your business today. So if I'm like a really compassionate, kind, creative person, right, and I use those things to kind of start Factor 3, well, it's a big shocker if I'm not applying those things to Factor 3, and it's a big shocker if you hire us that you don't see those things, right? So again, talking about the obstacles and the challenges and how you kind of overcame those as part of your brand story and starting your business, those are really important things to share. Okay, so some other things to talk about. I don't know, you're going to hear me talk about values over and over. Values don't equate to politics, and you have to be careful about like values. I know in last week's workshop, you learned a lot about understanding your audiences and things like that. And targeting to them. So like later on, probably in next week's workshops, when I talk about digital marketing, we'll talk about how to use values and things to create actual content, right? That kind of fits your particular audiences. But for now, I think, everybody wants to know who people really are. And this is about establishing trust and credibility. So really talking about what you believe in, and what you care about, that obviously affects like everything from whatever charitable work or volunteer work you do in the community to helping customers understand that you carry these values in your business. And because a brand story is not trying to sell people things, it's talking about kind of who you are. I think values are a really wonderful and authentic and genuine way to really get people to understand that they should trust you without you saying trust me, or sort of selling yourself too much. But you want to be seen as a business that's doing more than just looking for customers, basically. All right, so let's talk about vision. So finally, kind of at the end of your quest, there's you, right? The change that you're making in the world as a small business owner, as a member of your community. And your vision it's almost like your belief system, because nobody has a small business in isolation. We're all connected to one another. And I think especially during COVID-19, people feel isolated, they feel stressed, they feel marginalized, they feel invisible in many ways. We can't see each other in person the way we used to. and we're all looking for more connection, I think, than we were before. So this vision is a way to kind of wrap this up, and you can look at the statement that I put online. It's not anything you need to fill out, but it's kind of, I believe that sort of this group of people deserve whatever it is that I provide to help them, you know, kind of make their lives better in a particular way. And that's why I work so hard to whatever, serve sushi, be a good designer, right? So this is kind of how you want to change the world as it relates to your restaurant and your values. So that's kind of sort of wrapping things up. Okay, next slide, please. So, and then at the very, very end, there's kind of your impact. It's like the, I don't know, it's like the punctuation at the end of a sentence. It's the so what. So you got your business, you talked about who you are now and what you care about. So now end it and make sure that people understand what you do as a small business owner, how that connects to your community, as an individual, like kind of what you're doing, how you're giving back, how's your business helping. I think it takes you out of your business and brings everything back to the community. You can take all these, I don't know, I think previous 5 slides, and you can actually create, believe it or not, and I'll talk about how to do this at the next workshop. You can create social media content and marketing out of all these things that we just talked about. So like I said, it's not just sort of this exercise, this touchy-feely exercise. This is your roadmap for who you are, what your story is, and then kind of how to tell your story in different ways depending on who your audience is. So I want to keep bringing you back to that so that you can see that there's like a real reason to be doing this beyond just for the sake of doing it. So in a couple minutes, we're going to have like volunteers. Hopefully we'll have volunteers and I'll walk you through some of these. But first, let me show you some real, like some actual companies and show you how they do their brand story. Okay, next slide, please, Alex. All right, so we're going to look at 3 examples that tell a good brand story. You're going to see that they all share, for the most part, not like literally, but like some of the common elements that we discussed. There's a why did I start my business? What happened to me, right? That showed me that like there was a problem. And then like the how, sort of like how I did it, how I started my business and how it solves that problem that I saw in the beginning. And then my values, not necessarily in this order, but like what do I believe in? And then how are the things that I care about, right, as a person, how do they drive the work that I'm doing today? How do they drive what you're experiencing or what you will experience if you're not my customer yet? My business, my normal business, yes, but also how I'm connected to my community, how I give back, how you'll experience all of that. So this is Tom's shoes. I have a bunch of these shoes. I love them. But just take a second and we can look at Tom's story. But it's basically like on the right, I kind of explained in a nutshell what the founder was about and what he did. He started a shoe company that donates 1 pair of shoes for every pair sold. He was in Argentina, and he saw a bunch of kids that didn't have shoes, and that really moved him, right? And he didn't know what to do about it, so he started a shoe company. And now, for every shoe that he sells, he donates a pair, and that's a huge part of his. His business model, and he does amazingly well. If you look at his social media at the company's social media profile, you'll see that almost in, I think I counted, like every 4th or 5th post, they're always injecting their values, and I think I have some examples of that later on. So the other part of it is, notice how we are very quickly able to synthesize what that company does into like 10 words or less. Sell a pair so we can donate a pair, right? So that's also important. You can have a great brand story, but the purpose of the brand story is eventually for you to be able to hone in very quickly and explain who you are and what you do in a very short amount of time, because not every customer is gonna, read, your website ad nauseum or whatever. So that's Tom's. Let's take a look at another example. I think my glasses are from Warby Parker, actually. So basically, the founder realized he was a grad student, and as you know, grad students don't have money. At least most grad students don't have money. Um, anyway, I think he was like on a backpacking trip. He lost his glasses, and he couldn't afford to buy a new pair. And he realized, hey, glasses are too expensive, and everybody needs glasses. So guess what? I'm going to disrupt eyeglasses or eyewear, and I'm going to make affordable um, glasses. So it's not like, he's not even like, this is the thing about work, like they sell glasses. Like, I don't think they're saving lives. They're not changing the world in, the way like whatever, a large philanthropic organization is. But he has a story. He broke his glasses. He couldn't afford to pay for them. And he realized, hey, people need glasses, so I'm going to make them more affordable. So as you think about your own story, um, when I was preparing for this webinar, I kind of informally interviewed a couple people that I know, and I tried to get them to tell me their story of like why they started their businesses. And a lot of people come at it with a lot of humility, like, I don't know, I don't have a story. Why would anybody care about what I did? And that's kind of why I like the Warby Parker example. It's just glasses, but it has a compelling story, and it humanizes the act of going and buying glasses. And you'll kind of see, I think, in what they do, like on social media, how they make sure you don't forget that they care about, glasses being accessible and affordable. By the way, they also donate. Okay, so let's look at the final example, and that's me. So my story is a little bit different. I don't like, sell things. I guess I sell a service, but basically for me, I worked at a lot of nonprofits, and I was running their digital stuff, and we would hire vendors to come and do like fancy stuff for us, right? Like build us websites and launch big campaigns and all that. And I was I was so disappointed a lot of the times that often I didn't understand what the vendors were doing and what the value of the service was that I was getting. I felt like it was all kind of behind this curtain, and I was just getting marketing and presentations thrown at me. And I just, we all felt kind of intimidated by the process. And I thought, I wish somebody would just come in and just tell us what they're doing in a way that we can understand, so we can see the value of what they're doing for us, not just like the end result. And I realized that nonprofits, just especially the ones that don't have a lot of money, it's very intimidating for them to hire people to help them with their digital stuff, even if it's just like design and videos and whatever, but also like the marketing side of it and social media and all that. So I was like, we should start a company that, in addition to like doing the work, actually coaches and mentors the clients that we serve, so that they know how to do it themselves if that's what they want. And if they don't want to do it themselves, they at least understand it. So at the end of the process, they're smarter than they were in the beginning, and they don't feel intimidated by it anymore. So like if they go hire somebody else, they feel like, oh, we know what to hire for. So that's kind of our story. All right, next slide. So I guess this is where it gets fun or awkwardly silent. Next slide, please.